college football fans are severely overlooking Coach Prime and the Buffs. The way people dog this team on social media, you would have thought that they won no games last year. They won 4 games in 2023, which is a big improvement from them only winning 1 game in 2022. And a lot of their losses were decided by 1 possession. They sold against Stanford. They gave up 10 unanswered in the 4th quarter against Arizona. If they would have been able to hold on in those 2 games, they would have been bowling. And going into this year, not enough people realize just how truly good Colorado is. You got a top 10 wide receiver room in the nation. We know how good Travis Hunter is, but people ignore all the other studs they have at wideout. You got Jimmy Horn Jr. coming back, Amarion Miller. You know, when he went in against USC, he lit up that defense. And then you got some really good transfers from the portal. You got LaJohntay Western from FAU. I watched this dude play in person. I graduated from Florida Atlantic University. This dude was a stud. He had 103 catches, 8 touchdowns, over 1,000 receiving yards. He literally was FAU's entire offense. And then you got Will Shepard, who was a second-team All-SEC selection last year at Vanderbilt. Do you know how hard it is to be productive at Vanderbilt, especially with the garbage quarterback play that he had to deal with? This wide receiving core this year with Deion Sanders distributing the football, it's going to be damn near unstoppable. Oh, but what about the offensive line? They got a bunch of backups out of the transfer portal on the offensive line. That's a big misconception. Right tackle Khalil Benson, who is a transfer from Indiana, he started in every game for the Hoosiers in 2023. And you know how many sacks he gave up? Only 1 last year. What about Justin Myers, who transferred from UTEP? He only gave up 1 sack also. And he's expected to be playing right guard. He played left guard last year. You know, you got Yakari Walker from UConn. He only gave up 1 sack and 435 pass blocking attempts. Tyler Brown, he's a transfer from Jackson State. He followed Coach Prime from Jackson State to Boulder. He didn't even play last year. He was a 3rd-team All-FCS selection. And we already know about Jordan Seaton, who was the #1 ranked offensive tackle from the 2024 recruiting cycle. This offensive line is going to be night and day better this year compared to what it was last year. And you give Deion Sanders average offensive line, you know, he should be able to put up Heisman-worthy numbers. This dude had the best touchdown-interception ratio in college football last year, 27-3, playing behind an atrocity of an offensive line. So imagine how good he's going to be this year with more time to throw the football and actually being able to throw the ball deep for a change. You know, what about Dallin Hayden? People seem to question the talent they got at running back, but Dallin Hayden is a stud. You know, Ohio State has the best running back room in America. You know, you got Quinshawn Judkins, Travion Henderson coming back. But when Dallin Hayden got his number called for the Buckeyes, he was productive. This dude averages over 5 yards per carry for his career with the Buckeyes. And when he got significant playing time back in 2022, he averaged 5.7 yards per attempt, 5 touchdowns, and he had 553 rushing yards. Imagine what he's going to do against these Big 12 cookie-cutter defenses. Colorado should easily have one of the best offenses in college football. I'm not a big fan of Pat Shurmur, their offensive coordinator for this year, but Deion Sanders should be able to make him look like a better OC than what he actually is with the dogs that he's going to be throwing the football to and him having a way better offensive line that's been revamped heavily. Oh, what about the defense? I'm glad you asked, because you know those dogs that Deion Sanders said that they needed on the defensive line? Well, they got them now. They got 2 really good D linemen from Pitt. You got Dayon Hayes, who had 10.5 tackles for loss. He also had 4 sacks this year. You got another Pitt defender who had 6 TFLs and 5 sacks. You got B.J. Green from Arizona State, and if you're a Buffs fan, you should remember B.J. Green because he was absolutely terrorizing Colorado's offensive line last year. I know everybody did it, but he was definitely one of the players that stood out the most. He was the 83rd ranked player out of the transfer portal from this past cycle. He had 6 sacks for the Sun Devils last year. He was a second-team All Pac-12 selection. You got a pretty good group of linebackers. Levante Bentley was pretty solid. You're going to be moving Trevor Woods from safety to linebacker. And your secondary should be vastly improved also. Outside of Travis Hunter, there was no cornerback on this team that could stop a nosebleed. All right? You got DJ McKinney, who transfers from Oklahoma State. He appeared in all 14 games for the Cowboys last year, and every time he was on the field, he made plays. You got Preston Hodge, who came from Liberty. He was the 9th best safety in the portal, 60 tackles, 3 TFL, 13 pass breakups, and he had 2 interceptions. And you got Shiloh, and then you also got Cameron Simon Craig coming back at safety. The Big 12 is not a tough conference. And looking at Colorado from a talent standpoint, they are easily the most talented team entering Big 12 play this year. The only team that's as good as what Colorado is from a talent standpoint is possibly either Utah or UCF. And with them having one of the best quarterbacks in America, if not the best, that gives them an advantage. You know, they're going to be able to go on the road and beat Nebraska because Nebraska is going to be starting a true freshman quarterback. You know, one thing about Deion Sanders is that if you take him off last year's Colorado team, they're pretty much the worst team in college football. You guys saw how ugly that Washington State game got. So imagine how good he's going to be this year with a better offensive line and better receivers and a better defense. Deion Sanders, Travis Hunter are the 2 best players in college football this year. And you got them on one team. That's a significant talent advantage for Colorado compared to everybody else. Having Travis Hunter and Deion Sanders is the equivalent to you having 4 wins. And the Big 12, with this being a conference that isn't really known for recruiting that well or utilizing the transfer portal all that well, I don't see how Colorado doesn't have a shot to at least make it to the Big 12 championship game. All right, it's not like they are lacking the talent. All we really need to see is Deion Sanders improve as a head coach. The reason why they lost to Arizona, nearly lost Arizona State, and they lost to Stanford was because of Deion Sanders' poor clock management. But that should improve. He already acknowledged that he needs to make some changes. He needs to make some adjustments. He has done that and then some. You already heard what he said last year. You better get them where they're. And you already heard what he said last year. You better get us when we're down now because we ain't gonna be down like this too long. And you know he lived up to that because going into this season, this is a vastly improved Colorado team for what you saw in 2023. And the fact that people think that this is going to be a disaster, they're questioning Deion Sanders' methods instead of actually looking at the talent that he assembled. People are really overlooking Colorado this year, and it's okay because I've already made several bets on Colorado being able to win more than 5 games this year, so all you're doing is making it more easier for me to make more money off this team. I hope y'all keep sleeping on this team. I really believe that they're going to win the Big 12 this year. Like, Deion Sanders is a winner. He doesn't know how to lose. And when he did lose last year, it definitely didn't sit well with him. You can definitely tell if you watch the Coach Prime Amazon documentary series following him and the team last year. You know, he was really pissed off to be losing a lot of the games the way that he was losing them. So expect this team to be vastly improved this year, and I expect them to make a run for the Big 12 title. People make it seem like Colorado's in the SEC. If they was in the Big 12 last year, they possibly could have won 7 games. Oh, well, they got to benefit off a weak conference. The Pac-12 was weak. That was a big misconception. And the final year of the Pac-12 existence, that was the best we saw out of that conference in well over 10 decades. There were a lot of quality teams. Oregon State, UCLA, you know, who else? Oregon was really good. Washington made it to the national championship game. There were a lot of solid teams and a lot of good teams in the Pac-12 last year. That was the best that conference has ever been in a very long time. So them going to a conference that's more inferior in talent compared to what they were going up against last year, expect Colorado to at least win 7 games. I think that's the floor for Colorado. The floor is 7 wins. The ceiling is Big 12 championship. They got a top 10 wide receiving core. You got Deion Sanders, the best quarterback in college football. He's going to be throwing dimes behind a vastly improved offensive line with Dallin Hayden at running back, who averages over 5 yards per carry on his career. And you're going to have a more improved defense. Expect Colorado to be a factor in the Big 12 championship picture. I love how people keep sleeping on the Buffs this year.